Again, John Barkas, thank you again. At this point in time, I'd like to invite Vandana to the stage. She is the Chief Delivery Officer with Forces, and she'll be hosting our first panel. Vandana.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, everyone. I am the Chief Delivery Officer for Forces. What that means is that I have to deliver irrespective of shifting schedules, evolving priorities, and just about an odd curveball. No, JP, there is none. I think JP is looking at me hard. There is no curveball that we are dodging right now. But happy to be here and excited to host our first panel. My tryst with AI started in 2015 when we used the classic AI and predictive AI, right, that John spoke about, to solve a very, I think, specific problems for our customers. Even back then, I think getting bang for your buck stayed a constant challenge. The topic for today is AI in supply chain optimization. Gen AI, as we all know, has democratized AI. All of us use AI, right? But how do we use AI and make it real, have the ROI that we all need, right? And have smarter decision making, right? In the entire schema of things. I think this is something that I would be excited to hear from our eminent panel. With that, let me welcome our first panelist, Sesh Tirumala. He's the SVP and CIO at Western Digital. Sesh, welcome and thank you for joining us. Sesh leads Western Digital's digital strategy, unifying architecture, cloud, and supply chain innovation to accelerate performance and enable scalable growth. Sesh, I welcome you to the stage, please. Just because you asked. Okay. Next, we have Alison Ulrich, founder and CEO at Potentiate OS. Alison drives breakthrough growth for D2C brands through high-impact supply chain strategies and builds future-ready operating systems as the force behind the Potentiate US organization. Alison, welcome to the stage. And I think I don't know if any of you know, but she is a Ironman competitor, right? I think amazing. And then we have Sham R, SVP and CIO at Rambus. Sham powers Rambus's digital future through automation, advanced analytics, and cloud-driven innovation, enabling smarter operations and enhanced customer experiences. Welcome, Sham. Glad to have you here. I'm good. Thank you. All right. I think we'll start out with you, Sesh. You're right next to me. So I think the question that we have for you is, how is AI reshaping supply chain operations, right? By driving early quality insights, continuous improvement, and waste elimination, right? And how do we make it real again, right? For our audience here. Any examples that you can share? Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. So, you introduced me as CIO, right? Anyone know what CIO is?
Influencer officer.
No, career is over. With all of AI. So now I am sweating it. Career is getting over. So again, thanks for having me here. And it's been 2 years since I've been at Western Digital. We make storage. Most recently, we went through a divestiture. So again, I lead the hard disk drive side of the business. And with AI and all the data growth, we are really hoping that's a good tailwind and a good problem for us as we drive our business. We've got about, we do about a $10 billion revenue on an annual basis. We have 10 factories. We make everything in-house. And then as a part of our complex manufacturing, we essentially design, we plan, we build, and we fulfill, right? It's the whole value stream concept when you look at it from manufacturing. And I know John used classic AI and generative AI. And a lot of what has been done so far has been the classic AI part of it. Because, we have production lines, our wafers have a very long lead time. So one of the things I like to break it up in terms of the different domains are, first is what is computer vision? The second is, AI, ML, and with deep learning. And then some aspects of NLP. And then lastly, how do we get to generative AI? Specific to computer vision, one thing I've been blown away since I got into Western Digital is it's a combination and culmination of a lot of physics, mechanical, electromagnetics, glass, laser, what have you, right? And in the manufacturing process, you can't have defects, you can't have test escapes, so quality becomes super important and you want to catch it early on. So computer vision, I think, is super important to prevent and catch defects in terms of micro inspection. So we've done a lot of capability to help from our defect catching, et cetera. The second thing is our industry is a very capital heavy industry, right? So your test equipment is millions and millions of dollars. You can't afford idle time. But at the same time, you can't have every component go through it. So again, how do you better optimize your test equipment? And how do you use AI, ML, deep learning to better use your resources is the second use case that we find value in. And then a lot of it is actually traditional advanced analytics, right? Because again, most recently, we're still dealing with the tariff situation. You have a complex supply chain. So things like, you never get a perfect demand forecast and a demand signal for supply chain to execute. There's always going to be variability, global complexities, et cetera. So as a part of our supply chain, how do you do better planning? How do you better forecast the risk? Where do you see component shortages? Where do you see supplier risks? So again, all of that, you need good data and good analytics in terms of enabling that. And then last but not least is when things come back from your customers as RMAs or returns, we want to make sure that we learn from those returns. So how do you look at logs? How do you run the right analytics to ensure that you're addressing the root cause, right? So again, from a life cycle perspective, all the way from design, manufacturing, and even in the design side, we've got a lot of firmware code. So how do we do better code modernization, conversion? I mean, we are a 55-year-old company, so there's a lot of legacy. So how do you really migrate from the old to the new? So across the board, in terms of design, manufacturing, planning, logistics, we've used a lot of the classic AI. And now it's about how do we pave the path towards having a robust data foundation to build the agentic AI, the generative AI, things of that nature. So, thanks.
Thank you so much, Seish. Next up, Alison. How has AI helped augment SNOP, sales and operations planning, right? And any use cases that you can share with the audience here?
Sure. First off, it's a pleasure to be here and meet some of you so far, and I'd love to meet more of you after. And I think it's really important to learn from everybody and be challenged. I think, Sesh, some of the points that you made, I like to I can talk about all these things, and I like to have a little bit of it keeps me focused on structure. But I think like with your points, you had just mentioned more about like perfection versus variability and the risks and how important it is, like how you're learning from returns and like those root causes. I know the three areas for me that typically come up have to do like really with that enhanced demand forecasting. The way in which I work with a lot of the founders and brands that I have that are about supply chain visibility and optimization. And the third one, it's the eye of the beholder as far as which ones you really want to focus on. But the third top one for me is really about like scenario planning in regards to the way in which we want to look at like automated decision support, that augmentation. So, for me, it's like, as we all know, like SNOP is always about accuracy. But, again, the level of variability and risks that we have, that's always the caveat to it. So for me, in like the way in which AI has been transformative, the way in which I'm working with clients and, talking with my peers, it's those real-time data points. Looking at the way people always want to weave together the story of, I had mentioned to somebody here, it's, how we're using Excel and how long we've had our demand planning team and how well they know the SKUs, but it also has to come down to how you're looking at real-time data now and how AI is really that augmentation that is very supportive of your historical data, because that's how it can actually help you reduce your risks even greater. The way in which your teams understand the product, they know your customers, is really critical, but how people are understanding and looking at safer, easier ways to use AI. I go to a lot of conferences. I listen and speak at a lot of webinars, and everybody wants to do something sexy, flashy, innovative. And again, if you are just to start simple with large language models that exist, and you implement those with your team for better demand planning, the data and results you're going to get are actually going to be way more robust, and they actually open up a lot of great conversation within the company for improvements and challenges. I think for me, it's some of the areas that a lot of my customers, and then also some other of my peers have also looked at, is about weather forecasting. I work with a lot of hyper-growth brands, so they're not at an enterprise level, but the way in which they are looking at, weather patterns, understanding what's going on with CPI, that seasonality factor that they used to think about before. Seasonality is great. If you're, I worked for a company that manufactured outdoor sofas, so seasonality in that aspect was important. But when you start thinking about weather patterns from regards of shipping, warehousing, how you're going to free up space and help, save money, that's one area that is really important. Another area that is really key is, social media, TikTok, Instagram. The way in which marketing teams are looking at that data, and it's that cross-functional collaborative aspect that organizations really need to have within a value chain. I know in the early days, one of the first startups I was at, marketing just didn't want to understand anything about supply chain. And it blew my mind because the way in which you're going to market a product, with your MSRP and how you're going to, arm your sales teams with understanding what the product is and how much it costs, to know that, for lack of a better term, they could be that myopic, it was shocking. And the way in which I think a lot of organizations have learned to understand how important the education is at the value chain level, that also is what helps, with, enhanced demand forecasting. The other area for me is about that supply chain visibility. I can nerd out on that all day. Understanding really great ways to optimize your information is key. And I think the way in which I work with a lot of founders to help them when they are working with their VCs and PEs, instead of just going into a quarterly meeting talking about, I've got this really great product launching, the way in which funding exists these days after the pandemic, and now with what we're experiencing with tariffs, is, funding is becoming few and far between, and you have to really represent yourself at the table very strategically. And so when founders are able to speak intelligently about supply chain, it has to actually do with digital twins. And the way in which I use that with my teams at a lot of the startups I was at when I was managing and growing the organization was the competency in which you hire individuals is about what they each bring to the table, but also how you can help them learn and grow and scale in their roles at that company or in future roles. And the way in which we would use digital twin would be about how we can map out scenarios. And all of a sudden, the founders were floored and flummoxed at what that really meant. And it opened up a whole other conversation in regards to visibility and optimization, to know, instead of us just leaning on what, the 3 factories that we could do, or when I would talk to my peers, sometimes the 10 or 20 factories that they could do, it really comes down to with running through, hundreds, if not thousands of scenarios, because that helps you save tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So putting together digital twin for that optimization is really the second key piece that I find to be very interesting and specific. And the third is, this scenario planning, with automated decision support. The way in which, we're looking at S&OP, it's a very simple process, but there's actually a lot of granularity and technicality to it, as we all know. And if you're looking at opportunities when it comes to planning out, supportive decision in regards to like price increases for raw materials, these are pieces, again, at the founder level, sometimes they get so, rabbit holed in regards to they know their product, they know their story, but at the same time, if they're not understanding what's going on with raw materials versus how many new products they want to go to market with, aside from like their hero SKUs, they lose sight of the concept about what supportive information can actually be helpful for them. So those are some examples that we actually look at because that helps them understand exactly the variability that they have to keep in mind when it comes to watching margin, if they actually want to make it out of being, a startup or the next Me Too when it comes to running shoes or Peloton. It's becoming harder, and you have to be very strategic, and that actually truly means understanding and being very well versed with supply chain and manufacturing, way more than it is to just say I, was at Y Combinator, or I have a really great team with friends of friends. It's that data now.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alison. Shyam, the question that we have for you is, how is AI helping in your demand orchestration as part of your supply chain optimization strategies, given the changing environment and the market conditions?
Thank you, Vandana. Good question. In terms of, good to see everyone. I have a lot of friends here. One thing I want to highlight before moving into your question, the good thing that Shesh brought up, what is CIO, what does the I stand? I want to call out, there's a book called 12 Paradigms of CIO. You guys should read that. It's a wonderful book, and it talks about intelligence too. So I think we are good for a few more years. After that, we'll question that. Once it gets into more predictive stuff and agentic stuff, that's when we'll probably be questioned.
My team is more intelligent.
Yeah, you hire more intelligent than you. Yeah, you're right. So going back to your question, we are pretty much opposite to what Shesh and Western Digital are doing. We are completely outsourced. What that means is we are a fabless chip design company, fabless semiconductor company, right? Other than designing the chips, we don't do anything. We completely outsource. Our wafers are built by the various fabrication units out there, for example, TSMCs of the world and stuff like that. And then we have a complete third-party OSAT system, which basically does all the other assembly, test, packaging, and all those fun stuff. So what does it mean? The entire ecosystem supports us, right? If there's one peg in the ecosystem breaks, we are gone. So there's a lot more dependence on data in this case. So what that means is data leading to AI, right? So we have implemented so many systems out there for us just to get the visibility of that data so that we could make some predictive, good decisions so that we don't get hurt in our foot. So classic example that I want to bring up to you guys, right? We all witnessed COVID, right? One of the big things that COVID gave us an eye-opener for is in terms of demand. We could not sense the demand the way it's going to be during COVID. Did anyone guess it? Did anyone have the crystal ball here? No one did, right? Something that we are seeing, drawing some parallels right now, just because purely of this tariffs that's happening right now, tariff situation. Something similar is brewing right now on the similar lines, okay? So we are a lot more, we have a thinking cap on and trying to wonder, how do we make sure that we have a good demand forecasting system in play? So we have predictive intelligence running right now. We poll information from across various market research companies. We run through our algorithms and try to get as close as possible in terms of what the demand is going to be. So what the fabrication units have done right now, typically we used to have a 90-day lead cycle to get a wafer out. Right now it's 180 days. So now you can imagine, right? There's a much longer lead cycle. And also the OSATs have a much longer lead cycle too. So there's quite a bit of demand buildup that's coming on right now. And we see there's a lot more stress in the supply chain systems today. So one thing that I want to really call out from an AI standpoint, right? AI, we all talked about AI being an asset, but for me, I think it's more of a strategic asset for right now. So when it's a strategic asset, the key thing that you want to note is, how agile are you? Okay, that's what most of the companies need to think about. You need to be agile because you have a very strategic asset in your hand. Based on that agility, you can make some precisions. So demand forecasting is huge for us. We do a lot of defect verification also. I know that's a little out of supply chain realm, but that's something that we do as well. So demand forecasting, inventory management, these are the areas where we focus on.
Great, no, interesting perspectives, really. And I think what was common across, all three narratives was that, getting your organization ready, educating, using the right tool, right, when required, using analytics when it is needed, using classic AI when it is required, and then predictive AI when it is required, digital twin, right? And you don't really need the Gen AI sword, right, to battle it all. Right, I think that brings us to a question that I think all our audience would be waiting to hear about. What should the organizations do to embrace this AI wave, right, that we are currently in midst of? How do we know we are ready to kind of manage the change that AI is going to bring, right? How do we equip ourselves to ensure that, we are not washed off and we are able to survive and thrive in this?
No, I think it goes back to, Shami, you hit it as well, right? It all goes back to data. And candidly, technology is not going to be a magical, panacea in terms of solving all problems. And what we are trying to do within our landscape is, everyone familiar with value streams, right? Lead to cash, plan to fulfill, those sorts of things. And we talked about demand forecasting, et cetera. Really, a lot of the external market data sources are not good enough for you to predict. Because for our industry, in the ecosystem, we are heavily dependent on the cloud. Amazon, Facebook, Google, Meta, Microsoft, et cetera. And how do you get good market data that says that the demand is softening? And then, because you're in the food chain, if it's too late in the game and you've already over-provisioned your supply chain, then you have a lot of inventory, a lot of excess, a lot of obsolete, right? So one of the biggest things is what market data, like what Shyam was saying, is early indicators to build your right, demand signal, et cetera. And then the second thing is, for IT professionals, it's about data models, it's about getting the basics of, connecting the different systems, upfront demand systems to supply chain systems, and think of it in the context of, value streams. So get the processes connected, the data connected, the right sources of truth established, clean up and create data stewardship, the data governance. So all of that data literacy, data preparation is actually the biggest undertaking. And then comes, what are the other algorithms that you can leverage, right, on top of it to then prepare towards your AI journey. And then the only other comment I'll make is, it's a big culture change. We talk about, from your experience, I'm not sure how many salespeople put forecast beyond pipeline visibility beyond 90 days, right? So if your sales force is not having anything beyond 90 days, what do you plan for? So it's a big culture change. It's a big mindset change to ensure that sales is incented to provide, otherwise everyone's going off of that as a planning number. So,
Absolutely.
Sure. I think some of the items that you mentioned, I was going to state, but for me, it's also about creating a roadmap. And the hardest piece right now is how fast AI and technology is moving. We all think it's exciting, and there's a new platform every day. But to harness the focus of the culture and the organization on creating and sticking to a roadmap for consistency, that is one of the top hierarchical items that you need to put in place. And it goes back also to data governance and the quality, because it doesn't mean you should never change it in the future, but you have to start and you have to stick. Otherwise, it's like a retriever with the tennis ball. It's just so exciting every 30 seconds that you create whiplash within your organization. So establishing a roadmap and understanding what the time frame is that you need to commit to it in order to give it time to see what is actually going to come to fruition. And then at that point, understanding what components within that roadmap need to be added or iterated upon. The other piece has to do actually with skills. Understanding that you have individuals that you hire at your organization. I think it's always key to make certain you're surrounding yourself with A-plus players. And the way in which you choose to hire those individuals means that you're giving them really great quantitative work to own, so they know that they feel that they belong and they're being challenged, right? That's always a cultural challenge that exists. But knowing that you're giving these individuals the statement of your skills and your experience are important, and what is going to, gravitate us to the next level and above is giving you the education when it comes to skill sets in AI as well too. I mean, a really great example is the parent company for IKEA. They helped train over 30,000 of their employees on simple, AI skills. When you have an organization that large, you can't just put everything into an agentic model. And it's about the individuals that you have running across those departments, because that's a very supply chain heavy organization. It's about efficiency, about safety, wonderful products that are manufactured fast and really well. But that comes down to having those really great people as well too that have the skills. They come with people skills, they come with experience. And when you set the time aside to say, you matter, we help you with education as well when it comes to AI, you're just 10xing their power and their value on top of the fact of the excitement that you're giving to them about the type of organization that they work at.
So a couple of things I would love to add on that. I think first and foremost is AI is here. Please accept it. Don't please live in denial. There are some people who are still living in denial. Oh, it's not going to do anything to me. No, it's no. It's here. It's table stakes right now in all the companies. Though the adoption might be very less in some companies, but it is table stakes right now. Please accept that, number one. Number two, I think the power and the harness of data that you own, that's what's going to drive the success of AI. Any AI model that you're going to put out there, I think everyone spoke about it quite a bit. That data it's an asset. We all talk about this as an asset. Yes, it is an asset, no doubt. But flip that paradigm a little bit, make it a very strategic asset. I think that's what I would probably highlight. You don't know how strategic it is until you deploy, feed it through some of the LLMs and see the power of that asset that you have. That's way far outreaching. It'll really boggle your mind in terms of what are things that you can absolutely get done. So that's the only thing that probably I'll add to it. Everything is great points, training, skill sets, all that. It's given. You have to do it. There's no escape.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say, what we all face as challenges is no one's going to pay you extra budget to go figure out AI, right? You can't go to the board and say, yeah, I need another few $1 million for my AI projects. And then the question is, as a CIO, you're going to look at your portfolio and say, what can I stop? What can I kill? And that painful ERP upgrade you can never get rid of, right? How many people are on SAP that you need to get to upgrade on a supported version? Yeah. So you need to do that, and then you got to do a Salesforce upgrade. So again, I think here's where, the test of, hard decision-making, portfolio rationalization, so that the value for money is the only way you're going to make money for this AI is get your, we call things as perform and transform, and get your fundamentals of your running the business really, sharpened, that every dollar, every penny that you can drive efficiency, and then free up that money to do whatever you want to do in terms of your AI side. So the budgets and OpEx is going to be hard.
That's a good point. If I can add one more to that. One thing that our company has done, and this is something that happened from this quarter on, is if I go to my CEO and say, I need to hire someone, his first question is, tell me something that an AI cannot do. It's an AI first policy right now. So in terms of hiring. So that's the mode that we are going. If it's not happening in your companies, trust me, it's coming. So please get yourself ready before that. So that is coming. At least it's come. It has come in my company where I went and asked for people. They said, tell me what AI cannot do. Then we'll figure out. So.
My HR team was saying they're going to add in the STI calculation AI as a factor.
That's a good one.
No, absolutely. I think data is the new currency. If you can, I think, monetize it using AI, having the right culture and the right mindset, and I think being open to change, right? And accepting that AI is here, right? I think you better, I think, jump onto the bandwagon. There is no other way out. Yep, I think great discussion. Thank you to our panelists for taking time out and sharing your perspectives with the audience. I'm sure the conversations will continue off stage. Thank you all.
Thank you.